So they knew who I was. I was kind of a part of Asian Network anyway, but never really had any dealings besides rushing straight after 5:30, catching my train at 5:40, getting a taxi straight from my office, straight down to Oxford Street, Paddington, change, Oxford Street, walking up to the BBC, seeing all the presenters walking past, finishing their shows, going, hi, please be my friend. I want your job. Hitting the studios and doing voiceovers.
Wow.
It's real life.
It's real life.
It's real life. There are so many presenters out there that do one or two things in a weekday on screen or whatever they're doing. And I wonder how do they survive?
Yeah.
You know, how do they make money? How do they live? How do they buy those outfits? Like, can you afford it? Because I know, like, a one job might not pay your whole mortgage.
Yeah.
So what do? But they don't talk about it.
Welcome to In My Previous Life. I'm Jen Wakefield, and I used to be a primary school teacher, but I've since been a stand-up comedian, presenter, and writer. In this podcast, we give you a chance to hear firsthand from people who have changed careers from one set pathway to a creative or purpose-led job role. This is not where you'll hear a rags to riches PR story like the ones you find in magazines, but a real, authentic take on what it's actually like to change lanes in your adult life. This week, I'm so happy to be joined by Nayha.
Yay!
Hi Nayha, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Thanks for having me on.
Very, very excited. So Nayha, what were you in your previous life?
So in my previous life, I was a full-time recruitment consultant, and now I'm a TV radio presenter.
Woo! Jazz hands. You can see the jazz hands. And specifically, where is your main presenting gig at the moment?
So at the moment, I'm hosting the official Asian music chart on BBC Asian Network.
That's
so
fantastic.
It's every Friday, counting down 40 of the biggest songs. Been on the BBC Asian Network for about 3 years now. It's gone.
I think I saw you post up the other day the number of number ones you've announced. How many number ones?
156.
156 number ones. That's pretty epic.
It's going to be 157 today.
Well, hey, keep that tally chart going.
Exactly.
But Nayha, we met a few years ago, so we'll come on to how we initially met, because that's probably part of your journey anyway.
Massive part of my journey.
Part of your journey. But I'd love to start at the beginning and look at perhaps where you went into the world of work. Like, what was the beginning of work like for you? And did it involve any kind of creativity at that point, or was it solely your recruitment job?
So all through school, I was always creative. So I knew I wanted to do something creative. I was always the one that's doing dances and school assemblies. I don't know if you ever did that.
Yes, I was talking to a friend the other day. I went to a Catholic school, and it was quite inappropriate because we used to do like dances to like songs from MTV Base, but we would do them in like mass. So it'd be like a celebration mass, and I'd be going up and being like crazy and loud, kind of like dancing.
So we did Moulin Rouge on stage at a school assembly, and I went down and did like a slut drop, and I flashed everyone in school, and for a whole week everyone's like, we saw Nayha's white knickers. Why was I wearing white? Why was I wearing white for starters? Anyway.
And Moulin Rouge at what age, by the way?
I must have been about 14. It wasn't a great age.
Yeah,
it was too young.
I have to say, same age that we did the cell block tango as well. 14. Like, I can't believe our teachers let us do
those.
I don't
think that would be allowed right now, would it?
Yeah, no. But shout out to drama teacher. Wouldn't be here if it weren't for you.
There you go. Exactly.
But anyway, so back onto you.
Always creative. So I've always wanted to be a performer, and I wanted to be an actor. That was the goal. Wanted to be an actor. Went to university, studied acting.
Right.
Coming from a South Asian background as well, that's not really your typical route to go down.
Yeah.
So my parents obviously wanted me to do something academic, dentist, doctor, news journalist. But do you know what? They started saying that at the beginning. Then afterwards, they were like, "No, she's a creative. We're not gonna stop her."
At what stage in your life did you? So it sounds like all your life you've wanted to be doing the creative stuff.
Yeah.
But at what stage did they suddenly realise that this is not Nayha like going through a phase? This is Nayha.
I think probably when I started entering a few beauty pageants and I came runner-up, and then they were like, oh, okay, maybe she's quite confident, because I had to do an acting monologue on stage. Okay. So when they came to some of my shows, they were like, oh, you're actually okay, you know?
You're quite good at this.
You're all right, and then afterwards, I think that's when I started getting into community radio, because once I won, I wish I won, when I came runner-up for a beauty pageant.
Brilliant.
I got a crown, though.
Which beauty pageants did you do, by the way?
I did Miss India 20, can't remember.
Wow.
And I also did Miss Asian Beauty Queen.
That is amazing. I didn't know this about you.
Yeah, it's really random, isn't it?
It is. Well, no, it's not random, because fun fact, Nayha, and I know that you, if you don't mind saying, you're from the Windsor area, right?
Yeah.
I did Miss Windsor when I was 18.
Did you?
Yeah, and for the same reason that you're saying, because I think when you're trying to, like, I didn't really know what opportunities there were, and maybe this is what you felt. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I did it because I was like, it's a way of just like being on stage, and we had to do a little performance and do talk and stuff. So it was still because of the performing element, even though it's a beauty pageant, because some people were like, why are you doing this? But was that the reason why you did the pageants?
150%. Absolutely. I never wanted to be a model. I never wanted to be that person. I wasn't skinny enough to be a model anyway at that time, and just wanted to just perform. And one of the beauty pageants, which was Miss Bollywood, that was a huge beauty pageant. As Miss Bollywood UK going to Miss Bollywood Worldwide, which is across the world.
Oh my goodness!
And that goes to Miss Universe. So it was a really big pageant. But the winner won an acting contract in India.
Of course,
so that's the reason
you had
why...
a much bigger kind of like sort of target on bullseye target on the board,
but a little cheeky disclaimer, just in case anyone thinks I'm Indian. I'm actually Pakistani.
Oh,
and
okay.
I probably shouldn't have entered that beauty pageant, but I did because I was really hungry to become an actor. And I thought, how are they going to find out? They did. And basically, I used the fact that my grandparents were from India, because obviously it was one country back in the day. So I got away with being Indian. But then I announced on stage that I was Pakistani, and the reason why I wanted to enter this beauty pageant is because I wanted Pakistan and India to become friends, and all the politics out the window. Let's all be friends. I got to the top 10, then I was kicked out.
Oh man, you brought it together. But that's a really great way of like tying up. That's very clever, Nayha. And actually it brings me on to another point as part of this story, which is, opportunities. Like it's sometimes really tricky to find things when you haven't got anyone in your family who's ever done that before, which was the case really in my family too. And you don't always have access to things like, it depends on your background, what your parents are like. My dad was a single parent as well, and so there wasn't a lot of time. And I think that whenever I did extracurricular thing, I could do the odd extracurricular thing when I was older, but when we were younger, it was quite tricky for him to like take me to stuff. And I know a lot of children do clubs and things like that now. So I kind of had to seek things out myself, I found, which was great. It gave me those resourceful skills that I still use now.
Yeah.
In terms of you going to seek that out, was that something that you were like, okay, this is the first thing I can find that's going to get me closer? Was 100%. It that?
Yeah. That's why I did beauty pageants. I did random Asian modelling. I chucked myself in anything and everything, mixed with loads of different people, tried to network to try get into the creative world, all for free, obviously. Never got paid for anything. And then ended up getting a dead-end job in Honda as a receptionist.
Okay.
But while I was there part-time, I was applying for things on Star Now, because that was the only platform I knew back then.
Star Now is a fantastic resource. I have to say, that is where a lot of stuff happens.
100%.
Like, great resource if you're looking to perform and get your first things, right? Would you agree?
I absolutely agree. Even if they're looking for somebody to, I don't know, announce an award on stage or hold the award to give to someone, like you meet people in that room and you can network. So I always thought, take every single opportunity, anything you can find.
Just be available.
Just be available, just be there, just be everywhere. You're young, just do it, right? Yeah. So I did all of that, and then I also had a part-time sales job working in a furniture shop as well.
Oh, wow.
So I had 2 part-time jobs, and then I sacked off the receptionist job because they said all you're doing is sitting there and applying for media jobs. We hope you become a star one day, but they said, is this really for you? And I said no. So then I ended up getting a clothes job at Warehouse Fashion. Do you remember Warehouse?
Warehouse was great. It was always
way
a little bit
expensive.
It was a bit premium, Nayha. I was a new look being like, dreaming of Warehouse. But yeah, I always remember if anyone had a Warehouse like top or like jeans, I was like, oh, they're a premium person.
It was like 70% off for me though, because I worked there. So that's why I was like, brilliant, good. So I did 2 part-time jobs. And then I just got to the point where it's like, I have an older brother, great, lives at home. He was working, and my parents. But it was just getting a bit to the point where my mum worked in beauty and makeup in a department store.
Okay.
And, you know, my dad did well. But I think from what I remember, he did retire quite early on. He retired a little bit earlier, not because he's made it and he's a millionaire. I think he had some issues at work or whatever. And then by that point afterwards, I think he found it hard to find another job afterwards. So for me, making money was quite important. My parents never put pressure on me ever to kind of, you know, contribute, but I always wanted to.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting a phone call from this agency. I had my CV registered and they were like, wow, you'd be really good in recruitment, because really loud, really bubbly. I don't know, apparently that's what the typical stereotype of recruiters are. And they said, why didn't you come in for an interview? So I went to this really big company called Randstad, and they were like, you don't drive. I said, I can't afford to drive.
Yeah.
I said, you want to pay for my lessons? I'll drive. They're like, how are you going to get to your clients? I went, I don't know. But expensive. Do you want to pay for it? Anyway, long story short, I ended up getting the job there.
Brilliant. So when they kind of picked you out on your CV and were like, you know, you'd be great.
Yeah.
Was the acting and performing element quite attractive to them in that role as well, because they knew you'd have to be a people person? Had they picked that out as quite a defining factor? That's interesting.
Because the manager was a performing arts person. So he graduated in musical theatre and he did his own musical stuff on the side. So I think he really related to me, which was great. But there were loads of trials and tribulations between the age of, 18 and maybe my early 20s working there, because at that point I was really busy on the media side of things.
Oh, right.
And I really had to try and balance it.
And so what was happening? Okay, so you got this job now. This is sales, is it?
Sales recruitment.
Sales recruitment. And so your media stuff's picking up.
Yeah.
So what would a typical day look like in terms of you trying to balance those two things? Like, how did that play out?
So I would wake up in the morning, go to work, start work at 8:30, had to be there for 8:15. It's just the rules. Hit the phones, picking up the phone to candidates and clients. I'd be making sales calls. I just learned how to do sales, so I was really on it. I was really good at it.
And did the extrovert in you really like it as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that helped because I was quite fearless and confident, and I think they loved that. I didn't care if somebody said, get lost, and put the phone down. I was like, I'd call them straight back and be like, did we get connected? Did we get disconnected? Hello?
So that tenacity was like really...
Yeah, and they loved that. So I obviously would do all of that, but then at lunchtime I'd be taking my calls, speaking to people for auditions, or I'd be trying to arrange things. I'd be on Star Now still trying to apply for things. I'd be learning lines and scripts for things.
Yeah.
And then in the evening I'd be off going somewhere in the evening to work. I remember getting this film actually, and that was quite a big thing.
On Star Now?
I think it was Star Now, yeah.
That's really great.
I think it was Star Now.
Yeah.
I did a lot of unpaid stuff. It's just thinking back to it, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy now when you think about what you put yourself through, but that hard peddling very much, and that hunger is that starting of the engine, isn't it? You kind of need to lay those... Like if you imagine it's like a road and you put those paint lines down.
Yeah.
It's like your first time laying these paint lines, isn't it? So you have to get good. You have to really pedal hard,
100%.
Get them laid out, get them on. And then it feels like after that you can sort of slow down and just recover them over.
Yeah, exactly.
In a way.
It kind of felt literally like that.
Yeah. And so you've got this, so your lunch break is being used to apply for things.
Yes.
Learn lines.
Yeah.
And then after work, what time did you finish work?
I finished at 5:30, but it was always that, I always have that awkward moment of can I leave at 5? Can I work through my lunch if there was something?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, it was really awful doing it all the time.
Yeah.
But he understood, so I was kind of lucky. As long as I was hitting my targets, he was okay with it.
So that's a lot of pressure though, Nayha, because you've got sales targets to meet. So in terms of your stress load, you've got your times to be at work, times to finish work. So the times sound quite strict. You've got these sales targets to meet. So it's not just like you can turn up to a job and do your job and leave.
No.
You're in a situation now where they want your tenacity. You're using your energy on that job as well. And you've got these sales targets to meet. And then you've got this additional pressure that is pressure that you want, but it's still pressure to learn lines, pressure to turn up and show up for something. So that sounds like a lot of a kind of large load on your shoulders.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was. And it was for a very long time when I was doing recruitment. But I think I just got to the point of spinning lots of plates.
Yeah.
And I think, the second recruitment company that I went into understood my dreams and goals. And they headhunted me from the first company.
Okay, great.
And I said to them, I laid the rules out straight away. I am only going to accept this job if you allow me flexibility, I kind of had a bit of power at that time.
Yeah, because they're coming to you as well, so you can negotiate, can't you?
Slight power.
Yeah.
And that's the company I ended up staying in for about 10 years.
Wow.
So because they give me that flexibility, because they know me so well, because they're down the road to where I live, which happened to be by fluke. I didn't accept it because of that.
Yeah.
It just happened to be a 2-minute walk from my house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But also maybe a kind of interesting spark from somewhere unknown of like, maybe there was a way of alleviating this for you and making it work better for you, you know?
Yeah.
And this sort of thing, sometimes these like bolt from the blues can come out that can sometimes help you when you need it.
Yeah, 100%.
I think.
I completely believe in the universe.
Yeah.
I feel like things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
But I did have a lot of struggles at the beginning. You know, the first recruitment job I had, I went for an audition for Blue Peter.
That's massive, Nayha. That's huge.
There was the competition for 20,000 people. I did it. Loads of our fellow old presenter friends did it.
Right, yes.
Probably still on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah.
And I got a call back and I got down to like the final 50, I think it was. I had to go to Manchester and basically I took a holiday to go for another job interview as how they saw it.
Which is the reality of doing what you're doing. I know. And you're kind of probably feeling, I mean, how did you feel inside when this was happening?
I didn't give a shit. I was like, see you later, mate. I'm off.
So you were obviously you're not feeling that attached to your recruitment role, but in terms of, was there a lot of excitement bubbling when you were at this stage getting invited to go down as well?
I was like, oh, someone sees talent in me.
Yeah,
yes,
that's quite a big moment for you in
100%.
terms of maybe a slight turning point in house. Not that it wasn't serious, but you know, when you get your first sort of kind of sense of someone valuing what you're doing that isn't you.
It's professional.
Yeah, and that validation.
In the area that I wanted to go into, because I talked about obviously acting and all these other little bits that I did, beauty pageants, but my sole goal was always presenting in the end, because after doing acting, I struggled a little bit, especially being a South Asian. I just felt like I'd always be the person in the corner shop or you know, Mrs. Badell or something, you know?
Yeah.
So I just thought, you know what? After being interviewed for this beauty pageant, somebody invited me to be a weather girl on a radio station. And then ever since then, that's how I got my first ever radio job.
Okay. So this is great. So we're looking at like, now we're sort of going from a stage where you've gone into your full-time sort of money job.
Yeah.
And you are using a lot of your personal energy on that, your attributes. But you've been sort of really hustling. And I totally get that whole thing of going, I want to be a presenter, but actually I've got to find other ways to make it happen, because it's really difficult. You can't always just be a presenter. I mean, some people can, and maybe back in the day, but certainly now it's different. And again, we can come on to that. But now you've gone, okay, I've got my focus, which is presenting. I've got this Blue Peter validation, and I've also been invited to be a weather girl. So how did let's put a pin on the Blue Peter thing just for a second. How did the weather girl thing happen?
So I did Miss India, and or one of the beauty pageants, I think it was that one. And then a local radio station contacted me, Hayes FM.
Oh,
in
yes.
Hayes.
Yeah.
Hayes in Wellington, in case people don't know where Hayes is. And they
near Heathrow,
contacted
isn't
me.
it? Near
Yes,
Heathrow.
it is, West London. And they contacted me and said, oh, hi, we want to interview you, basically. You're a local-ish girl, lived around the Slough area then. And then I spoke to the presenter and they were like, wow, you're so energetic at 7 o'clock in the morning. Fancy being a radio presenter, or coming in and being a weather girl is basically what they said. Went in and did it on the weekends, obviously voluntary, not paid. And obviously I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't drive either, as you know. Yeah. So I was like, I said everything wrong. M23 is M23. I don't think there even is an M23. M25. I just said everything wrong. I didn't know the travel either. But slowly, I became a co-host with one of the presenters that invited me on.
Okay.
And then we ended up having our own show. And then from them, I went to an Asian radio station for 6 months.
Right.
I loved it.
You'd gone from weather to like actually hosting the show this time, and you were like,
my first ever own show, which was
amazing.
Asian Star in Slough High Street in the shopping centre.
Wow.
On my weekends again.
Okay.
And then from there, I only did that for 6 months because I really wanted to go into the mainstream. I really wanted to try mainstream media. I loved dance music, pop music, all of that sort of stuff, R&B, hip hop, everything.
Yeah.
So then I went to West Side Radio, which at the time, because now it's very urban, at the time it was
mixed.
A mixture of everything. And I did the chart show there.
Wow.
Weird,
wait,
right?
What year was that, Nayha?
Can't remember. 20, I don't know, 20, 13, 14,
14, because I didn't actually do a show there. We might have had some crossover. I did my presenter training there with Miles. I don't know if Miles was there.
Miles works at the BBC now.
Oh, does he?
He does.
Oh, Miles was such a great teacher.
Yeah.
Big up, Miles.
He's a producer at the BBC now.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, say hello to Miles. Hi, Miles. But Miles was a lovely teacher. I remember something he said really stuck with me, which was don't look to the side at what everyone else is doing. Just focus on what you're doing. And it's so simple, but I really focus on that now. But anyway, thanks, Miles.
I know.
So Miles was part of your story. West Side Radio is part of your story as well.
Absolutely.
So
and then they turned quite urban and I didn't fit that. And me and the station manager had a chat and we were like, yeah, no, we both agree. So he did whatever he could to get me on a station where I met you.
Yes, which was 517.6.
That was really bad. We'll try again. Ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
517.6. I'll never forget that. I loved it.
I know. And then the American guy, Vibe.
Oh, yeah.
Vibe 107.6.
Yeah. All the different like flavors mixed in. It was great. It was a great time. So you firmly in radio now. Like you're like, okay, presenting radio, this is a big focus. And so where did the Blue Peter part fit in that? Were you doing that had that happened at that time as well?
So it happened before Vibe FM. It happened earlier on during a competition, and I went in for the audition, but it went horribly wrong. Horribly wrong. I don't read a lot of books.
Okay.
So when I'm reading things, if there's words I've never heard of before, I really struggle to read them.
Yeah.
And I think it's equestrian,
like horse, like with horses and
say
stuff.
Equestrian, that's for sure. I don't know what I said.
But I mean, I think that's quite a word to get your mouth around. So you'd hope you could have a bit of like prep time. Was there no prep time?
No,
it was just like
the script there and then
thrown in.
Yeah. Whereas now, if somebody was to give me that, of course I'd nail it. But obviously at that time, I was nervous. 2, it was the time of the month. I'm just being really honest because you've got to be honest, right?
That does have an impact.
I felt awful.
Yeah.
I felt horrendous. I was really hot and sweaty. Your body temperature just is times 10 sometimes.
Yeah.
And I was just extra hot and sweaty. And I was really confident, but I was saying all the wrong words. I was saying incorrect spellings or whatever it was. And I think obviously because of that,
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's part of it, but there's a lot going on in that moment, and it's quite high pressure, and it feels extremely high stakes. And also, you're in the mix doing this. You're doing lots of other things, and this is the first big thing
going to Manchester
like that's happened.
To the
yeah,
building. It was amazing. It was so cool. I was like, oh, wow, look where I am. And in between that, I did a T4 audition. It's again a competition.
Yeah,
I entered the MTV competition for the next MTV presenter.
Yeah,
which Nimi, I don't know if you remember her from Vibe.
Yeah,
she
lovely
won that.
Nimi.
She's in Dubai doing amazing.
Shout out Nimi as well.
Shout out Nimi. So there was loads of little bits along the way.
Yeah.
Everything for free. Red carpets for free. Made friends with somebody who I messaged on Facebook. This is all while I'm doing my recruitment job, by the way.
So yeah, you're still full-time recruiting. So
I'm smashing the phones out.
So these are things where you're smashing your sales target. So you know how.
I was. I still am, but obviously the market's up and down. As it has been. But yeah, no, I was doing really well actually.
That's brilliant.
When I joined this new company, after the first recruitment company, I did 22K my first month being there. So that's quite good in recruitment, especially as a newish bee.
Yeah.
So it's quite good. I was doing well, and the market was booming as well.
Yeah, but like
good.
This is striking me now as Nayha is someone who hustles, but you are really developing a skill that I think has probably given you a lot of longevity, which is the plates thing, because you're not just kind of focusing in on one thing. Like some people might focus on one pathway for a long time and stick with it. And that's amazing. That's also an incredible skill that I don't have actually. You are going, I've got all these plates and I've got pressure and I'm managing to balance them all. And I think that's quite incredible, and also something that perhaps is putting you in good stead for what you're doing long term as well, because you have to do that a lot, don't you?
You do. And the thing is, I don't ever want to tell anyone that they need to do exactly the same thing. They need to be working in a full-time job, doing stuff in the evenings, not having any free time for yourself, because I was able to handle that, but maybe somebody else might not be able to, and it might make them ill. Because I used to have a lot of people, even to this day, people come up to me and say, how do you do it? How do you have so much energy? My friends look at me and they're exhausted. They're like, we want to go home and get in our pajamas. How are you doing this, and this? I've always done it. I'm okay doing it. That's because I really, really want to get to where I want to be.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I cannot afford to just quit.
Yeah.
a full-time job and go 100% freelance. I've not come from a rich background. My family just very normal.
Yeah.
There was a period in my life where my brother wasn't working for quite some time. So it was a lot of pressure, on our family house. It was just me and my mum. And it was tough.
Yeah.
And, there was no way I was able to just quit my recruitment job and move to London, which I've always wanted to do, on my own. Rent and just go for it. I see Maya Jama did that. I think she left Bristol. She slept on her mate's sofa.
Yeah.
I've got that characteristic in me to do that, but I just couldn't afford it. I literally could not afford it.
Yeah. So, admirable that you actually honoured your responsibilities, because you could have rebelled against that. That's quite mature. And we're talking about maturity. I was talking about maturity with someone before, because I actually realised that although there are certain things I've done in my life, my actual attitude towards things I think I was quite late to mature to certain things. I would take an option where I've always done things responsibly, but I haven't necessarily always had a mature outlook in terms of what my tastes are, or sometimes some of my responsibilities to others, or thinking of others, maybe I would say, because I was so focused on my goals.
Yeah.
But I think you've had quite a responsible, mature approach to that. Again, very admirable, and something you should give yourself credit for as well, because that's it's tough to manage.
Family's important though. That's the thing.
And for you, it is.
Yeah, family's really, really important to me. So that's why I was like, well, I can't do it. To be fair, no one even asked me to. No one even stopped me. I think if I did what I wanted to do, they would have managed and they would have been fine with it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't fine with it.
And is it also because is that stability and that base something that is important to you because of what you're doing? Is it just because the connection to your family is so strong? What is it that is that something that you want to preserve and keep safe?
Yeah,
as well?
I think it is. But now obviously, times have moved on a little bit. They're okay. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I don't need to have so much of a responsibility in that way before I did, though. That's the thing. I think now is a little bit different, but I think that's really important to have that stability. And I think, when you're in full-time work, you start being able to afford things. You start to be able to buy nice things. And I loved fashion, and I still do. I'm obsessed with fashion. So for me, it's I really, really wanted to have nice clothes all the time and for events and things like that. So I wouldn't have been able to do that and afford that if I didn't work.
Yeah, got you. Okay, so Blue Peter's kind of gone a bit bit by the side. And what were the feelings you were experiencing after that? Did it kind of knock you, Nayha, or did you not let it rock you? How did that go?
I definitely regretted it because I was like, I wish I just knew how to say equestrian. Now I know how to say it. But besides that, it didn't knock me. I was very, very driven, and I had quite thick skin. And I think as you get older, I feel like things affect you more.
Yeah, you get knocked back perhaps a bit more easily because I think you stick more in your lane. Yeah. Because you're popping out when you're trying all the different things, you're popping yourself into new environments all the time. So it doesn't phase you that much. And you're quite malleable. And then when you actually start focusing down and getting more mastery over what you're doing, you're staying in a lane. And so you perhaps are a bit more in your comfort zone because you are mastering that, and then something can knock you sideways a bit more when you're on a straight lane. Yeah, maybe
100%. No, I definitely think so. I agree with you. Definitely.
But it sounds like you weren't that. It sounds like you didn't let that affect you, which is great. It's really showing your personality as well. Yeah, and your character. So you didn't let it knock you. No. And at this time, you're doing Vibe 107.6. And what was your show on that, Nayha, that you did?
That was, oh my gosh, it was the Vibe Brunch Show. Oh, so nice. I think it was 11 to 1.
Okay.
11 to 1 every Saturday. And then I also then got promoted. Ooh. I got a promotion. I got promoted to Mondays and Tuesdays. 1 till 4, I think it was.
Oh yeah, big slot.
Or 2 till 5. How can I forget? 2 till 5. Yeah. 2 till 5. But I pre-recorded those shows. Sorry. Yeah. Pre-recorded. It does happen.
No, yeah, it does happen. Yeah, I remember when I found out about pre-recording, I was like, so I don't have to come up every single day and do the show.
But do you know why I was pre-recording? Because Monday and Tuesday, I was hitting the phones, getting someone else their dream job.
Oh, well, there you go, making other people's dreams come true.
Yeah.
And so, are you still working full time then? At this point, Nayha, with your Vibe show?
The Vibe show, yeah.
Still working full time.
Monday to Friday.
Okay, got you. So
and weekends, evenings, whenever candidates needed me.
Yeah, so you were still on it. And so we're in the sort of middle of your journey now. We know that you've you've done a lot of kind of grafting and hustling in the evenings on Star Now. You've been out on weekends. You were doing lots of things for free, which you obviously have to do. And I know you mentioned just now that fashion, you're really, I've always seen you looking amazing. So that doesn't surprise me, genuinely. But are you doing entertainment presenting? Are you doing music presenting? Is it all to do with, is it the entertainment world, or is it strictly fashion, or how is that focusing in?
So it's mainly things that I've always been passionate about, which is music, always music, and then fashion and food.
Food.
I'm a massive foodie. I love eating. I love it. But the food thing came a little bit later on, I'd say.
Yeah.
But definitely fashion and music. So for example, how I developed my career when I was at Vibe was that I met this guy called Joel from Media Spotlight UK. It's an online platform, which I think you...
Yes, I've done a couple of interviews with Joel. Yeah.
I've done a couple of interviews.
Shout out Joel. All these great people.
You, Joel. He always gets a mention. But I saw that he was doing a few interviews online with people. And this was actually just before Vibe.
Yeah.
And I messaged him on good old Facebook.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, hi, can we chat, meet or whatever? Anyway, fast forward, he got me to do a few interviews. I think the first person I interviewed was Paigey Cakey.
Paigey Cakey, that's a great first interview.
Paigey Cakey.
Yeah.
And there was one more lady, but I forgot her name, and I was wearing my work clothes.
Wow.
And
so you dashed from work.
I dashed from work, and I was wearing my work clothes in the interview, and all I did was put like all these bangles on to try and make it fashion, you know? It's got like a work dress on, and then this, and I chucked a bowler hat on with those bangles. Who would do that?
Bowler hat, a fedora, like the things we do.
Do you remember that back in the day?
But you obviously made it work.
I hope so, but I mean, looking back, I'm like, no, I'm not again. So I started doing small interviews, and then we were at every festival doing music interviews. He got press accreditation. We were working together. We were out there. We were doing things. It was great. I got a lot of YouTube content, and then more people started asking me to do other presenting gigs. Then I got some hosting things from it, which is great.
Is this still through Star Now, or this is like word of mouth, people contacting you?
Word of mouth and a bit of Star Now, because then I had some footage to send to people.
Yes, because you often need to show, you have to develop your show reel and keep it fresh, don't you?
100%. Because I mean, my original show reel was basically me in Slough High Street. It's probably somewhere online still. Running, dressed as a clown, high-fiving people. That was part of my Blue Peter audition.
Oh, brilliant.
Bit scary. And then sitting on an ice cream truck, speaking to the ice cream man, interviewing him. I did whatever I could to get some footage.
Yeah.
So that kind of was sent to Joel, and he was like, all right, let's try you out, you weirdo. And then obviously then I got more work, and then I got like literally there was this program called What's Up TV, and I kept seeing a few of like fellow presenters like just doing things, and then I was like, oh, this seems so fun, I'd love to do it. I hounded the man for about a year and a half. hounded, email. Constantly.
So I remember Davina McCall did a talk once at an event, and she was saying how she first got her job on MTV. And she said that she's used that analogy of a mosquito. She's like, never underestimate the power of a tiny little thing nudging the mosquito. You know, like that whole like, it would never go away. And she said that's how she approached contacting them until they said yes to her. And then MTV was her chance to to cut her teeth and make the mistakes and all that sort of stuff. So I feel like you've that's a classic example of that strategy, which is good. It's like, again, the tenacity of Nayha.
But then I learned that from sales, didn't I? I learned that from my recruitment job. I learned how to network. I learned how to go on LinkedIn and get hold of contact names and details.
Yeah.
So I know how to use LinkedIn really well, and that so helps with the job that I'm doing to try and get into contact. So poor Bob, I literally just absolutely just constantly emailed him. Then finally they called me while I was at my recruitment job, and I answered. And I was like, hello. And then I had to go out. So there's all these little things that when you're doing a full-time job, I had to sneak out. And they were like, oh, we've got this online opportunity for like online content. We'd like you to audition for that. And I'm like, great, but I want to be on the TV. I don't want to do it online.
Right.
I did say that. I said, I want to do the TV thing. So do you have any opportunities coming up for that?
Yeah.
Obviously, if I do that well, then they look at that.
Yeah.
So I did that. And they obviously offered me the job as a TV presenter as well, which was amazing. They gave me the worst audition ever, though.
What was your audition?
I literally had to like spur of the moment, walk and talk. That was the first part of the audition. Easy.
I always think of like Homes Under the Hammer, the walk and talk when they're seeing the property. But that's a skill. That is a skill.
Walk and talk, and then I had to interview the director. But while I was interviewing the director, there was about 10 or 15 people that came and tried to interrupt the interview, and they were trying to pull him away. That was a test to see if I could handle it.
Oh wow!
So that was really hard.
They really put you through it.
Somebody jumped on my back while I was interviewing him. I was like, "Sorry, what? Is this real life? Is this security? Is this real life?
That's bonkers."
I know. And then we also, I had to interview him about his life, and he's had a very different upbringing. So we were talking about that. It's a bit more emotional. So he wanted to see how I was like that. And then I had to interview somebody from the team, and it was just really, really tough, but they offered me the job, and that was great. So I got, proper TV experience.
That's fantastic, because What's Up TV?
Yeah.
And so is that Sky Channel? Am I right?
It was Sky One.
Sky
it was
One.
Saturdays.
Wow.
It was just before Soccer AM.
Oh, that's a huge slot.
I know.
That's
it was
massive,
great.
Nayha. So that's a big, big break, really.
Yeah, it was. So I got to interview loads of people like, oh my God, Rosie Jones.
Yeah.
Just loads of comedians, loads of artists, creatives, musicians. And I remember my first shoot, I literally went from work. So I always think of outfits. I remember wearing this black pinafore because it's very corporate with black tights because it's work.
Yeah.
My work shoes, like little dolly shoes or whatever at that time. Dolly shoes
or the ballet pumps. Yeah. Ballet pumps.
And then I wore this vintage shirt that I got from Shoreditch, thinking this will give it a bit of me.
Bit of edge.
A bit of edge.
Yeah.
Bit of a gold chain there as well, because at the time they were in fashion from Topshop. And I just remember thinking I wouldn't have worn that if I wasn't going to work. But I have to think you have to incorporate your work outfits with your interview outfit.
But yeah, this has come up, this whole thing of like this crossover between the fact that you have sometimes when these big things happen, you're in your day job, you're in your corporate job or whatever it is, where you are just jobbing and doing that thing, and it's not a world that you really would share with your workplace, because you're kind of secretly trying to get into another world, really.
Exactly.
So it's a weird juxtaposition when that happens, isn't it? And you have to kind of go between the two worlds.
100%, yeah. So then that was great. What's Up TV, great experience. And then I got told about another audition for a food program on an Indian TV channel, which is one of the biggest in the UK.
Wow.
But no UK programs. They're all based out of India.
Okay.
This was the first, and it was a food program called Desi Beat, which is basically a show where you go to people's houses, you cook curries, you learn about their family history, and then you sit and eat.
That's like the dream.
It was the best job in the world. I know, it was so good. And also we started off going to restaurants first, 2 restaurants in a day, rating all the restaurants across the UK. I went from Bradford to Scotland to London to Slough.
That sounds
everywhere.
Phenomenal. Like the
Amazing.
best food ever.
It was such a good experience. A lot of walking to camera. Walking and talking to camera.
Pieces to camera called, aren't they?
Yeah, pieces to camera.
When you're walking, it is harder than people think. You've got to be aware of so many different things.
Eating and rating the food at the same time was very difficult.
Yeah, eating, trying to yeah, you have to be like a demure eater, because I'm an ugly eater, so like
I was at the beginning, but I mastered it, there's salt in this, the masala, it's delicious. I mastered it in the end, but I did
a teaser trailer.
Yeah, basically, but to be fair, everything was delicious. I literally didn't say yuck to anything.
Oh, I'm so jealous. This is the most jealous I felt of anyone else's
really good
bits
job.
of their job.
And I went to the gym like nearly every other day. I had to, because
just to make up for it.
Honestly, yeah, it's so hard not to put weight on, because obviously when you go to a restaurant, they're like, okay, so the dish that we're talking about today is, I don't know, a chicken curry. Yeah. That's the focus on the episode. But what else do you want off the menu? And I'm greedy. I'm like, this, everything. Yeah. So you just literally eat twice a day in 2 restaurants, and it was just amazing.
It sounds phenomenal.
It was.
Fair. So you're still working full time though, doing these jobs now, is that right? Because that's now, you've got 2 presenting jobs on 2 channels.
Yeah.
You're working full time in recruitment still?
I'm working part time in recruitment.
Oh, so now okay. So at what point did you go part time?
So, go back to lockdown.
Yes.
Obviously, pandemic. I'm in a corporate job.
Yeah.
And I was privileged and lucky enough to be furloughed.
Okay.
As I got furloughed, while I'm still at Vibe FM, I got offered a job called Aspen Weight Radio. It was like a new radio station. They just started.
Yeah.
It was my first radio paid job.
That's brilliant. That's a huge thing.
I was like,
huge deal.
It's not that long ago. We're only in 2024.
Yeah.
So first ever job. So I was getting furloughed. Okay, fine. And then I was doing this radio job during the hours that I was
would have normally been
working in recruitment.
Got you.
Got to save lots of money. I was really happy.
Yeah.
So did all of that. And I did it only for 6 months because I got a call from my agent while I was in the office on my own, because most people were staying at home because of lockdown. I was furloughed. I get a phone call from my agent to say, can you sit down, please? And I was like, why? Is everything okay? He was like, you've just been offered the host to be the host of the official Asian music chart on BBC Asian Network. Do you want it? I went, do I want it?
That's
do
huge.
I want it? Yeah, I do. So I was like, oh my God.
That's unbelievable, Nayha. So had you been going into the BBC at this
So I have done many demos, just to keep it real, with a lot of radio stations.
Yeah. And that's very much like, for people who don't know how radio works, that's very normal for people who are trying to get into radio, right? So I remember when we were doing Vibe, people were demoing up in Manchester, in different parts of the UK, because actually you have to do a lot of regional demos because a lot of London is kind of taken up, it feels like, right? With jobs, or it's a certain different way to get in, so you have to do a little regional demo. So you were doing that at different stations.
Different stations. I covered Birmingham Capital for a week.
Okay.
That was when I finished uni. That was 2016, 2017 actually. So it wasn't when I finished uni, but it was around that time. So it was quite a bit after I finished uni. But yeah, so 2016, 2017, I remember, because I went to V Festival that year, so I never forget the year. So I covered Birmingham for a week at Capital. I did some covers on Kiss, because I entered the Kiss Chosen one every single year.
Yeah.
And I finally got down to the top 10, I think, in one of them, of which I then got to cover shows on Kiss Fresh. And then I was talking to Kiss for quite some time, loads of different other stations.
Yeah.
And then I got an opportunity to go on as a guest on Asian Network in 2020 during lockdown, which I did. So they got to see my personality a little bit. I was on Poppy's show, The Group Chat, which was a great show.
Oh, yeah.
And then I got a DM on Instagram from somebody that worked at Asian Network. He said, do you want to come and pilot? And I said, yeah, I will. The reason why I didn't pilot with Asian Network for quite some time was because I was the voice of the station.
Oh, I remember this, Nayha, because so I did some stand-up as part of BBC Asian Network.
You did, I saw.
Yeah, I did the Fringe in 2018 and did the show there, but I had popped in a couple of times on Emily and Moan's show, maybe once on their show, and I had been in a couple of times, so I remember hearing you doing the idents, right?
Yeah,
and so
I don't think anyone knows that it's me.
I think I might have known. I either heard your voice, 'cause I was like, that's Nayha from radio. But when did that happen?
So that happened along the same time of when I was doing the covers at Capital, demoing at loads of different stations. I went and demoed at Asian Network. Did I demo? No, I didn't actually do any. No, I did do a pilot, but they lost it. So I did a pilot, and the woman basically who did my pilot, I think, got pregnant, and she went on maternity leave. So there's no way of contacting her. And I made all this effort to get all these different contacts to make the best pilot ever, but it didn't work. But I think they heard something anyway.
Yeah.
And they were like, look, you're very commercial. You're very Kiss. You're very Capital. You're very fast paced, high energy. We don't feel your Asian music knowledge is up here. Obviously, I listen to everything. I love Asian music as well. But at that time, I think I probably didn't showcase that as much.
Yeah.
And they just felt like I'd be better suited commercial. Then they said, hey, do you want to be the voice of the station? And I was like, yeah, right then. How'd you do that? Never done voiceovers before.
No way. And that's kind of, now I hear your voice. I'm
like,
it feels like a no-brainer. It's like, of course you should be doing voiceover.
Aww.
Your voice is very easy to listen to as a radio voice.
ASMR, for anyone listening to the podcast.
Oh, there we go. Bit of ASMR. Bit of free ASMR. Another career you should be doing, and plate you should be spinning. So okay, that's really interesting. So you'd gone in and piloted, but then they were like, we actually think you'd be great as the voice of the station.
So I did the voice of the station for 4 or 5 years. So they knew who I was. I was kind of a part of Asian Network anyway, but never really had any dealings besides rushing straight after 5:30, catching my train at 5:40, getting a taxi straight from my office straight down to Oxford Street, Paddington, change, Oxford Street, walking up to the BBC, seeing all the presenters walking past, finishing their shows, going, hi, please be my friend.
Oh.
I want your job. Hitting the studios and doing voiceovers.
Wow. How often would you do voiceover there?
At the beginning, when I first got the job, I was doing it probably every couple of weeks, because changing the voice of the whole station is everything.
Yeah.
And then I started doing it sporadically. I always wanted to go in because I just wanted to be in that building, the BBC building.
It's a great
just wanted to be there. And then obviously after lockdown, I was able to do do it from home, which was great. So,
Right, okay.
And then obviously once I got the job at Asian Network, I got fired from the voiceover job.
Oh, well, that's kind of like a bittersweet, I mean.
Because obviously I can't be like, this is Nayha on BBC Asian Network. Hey guys, it's Nayha on BBC Asian Network.
Yeah. I mean, a sweet ending.
Yeah.
Well, a sweet ending to a sweet beginning.
Yeah.
But and so how's your recruitment role like changing now at this stage, now that you're in full-time presenting?
So obviously at the moment I'm doing TV, I'm doing radio, I'm doing hosting events. I'm hosting in a couple of weeks for this show called Dance Inspiration. So it's going to be like every other weekend, Belfast, Scotland, like all over the place. I did BBC Show Your Story, which was an incredible thing at school. So, do a lot of hosting on the weekends and evenings. I basically have to use my holidays.
Right. Okay, because you're still in recruitment, but you're not full-time. Is that right, Nayha?
No, do a couple of days.
So you're part-time recruitment, 2 days a week. Okay.
I'd say 3, sometimes 4. It really depends on what's going on.
Okay.
But I'm definitely not full-time anymore.
Great, okay.
And my work are incredible. They're
Yeah.
amazing people. They all understand, obviously, this is my dream, my goal, my passion, to be doing this full-time. They actually encourage me to speak to clients about what I do.
Oh, wow.
They have changed their company values based upon me. So they've got one line in there that says, always support, I don't know word for word, but it's something like always support your employees for their dreams and goals outside of work.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've kind of made a chip in their ethos and mission, which is great.
Yeah, which is great. So I really appreciate them. So if I say to them, look, I'm covering a show for a week in Birmingham.
Yeah.
I'll be off. I'll take it unpaid if I need to.
Yeah.
I will use my holidays.
Yeah.
They're flexible.
So again, you're still juggling plates though, aren't you? You're still juggling.
Yesterday I had a voiceover job.
Okay.
And I, half day, 12:30, ran home, changed out my boring work clothes, put some cool clothes on, hit to London, did my voiceover job, went to an event.
Wow. Yeah. So you're still here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
And that feeling, I do understand that feeling of like leaving your day job, rushing around, quickly changing to something that you're like, can I be accepted into this world now? And then like going to that world and just having to very quickly change your hat. Is a huge skill. So what's your day-to-day like now then, Nayha? Like you've kind of explained it a little bit, but can you describe like a typical week which involves a bit of your recruitment role and a bit of your...
So I think no week is ever the same because the media side is crazy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but a typical day would be, for example, mostly there's not a lot of things on Monday. So Monday I would be going in, hit the phones at 8:30 in the morning, speaking to candidates, speaking to clients. You'll have certain jobs that you work on. So for example, a couple of sales roles I'm working on. I'd be there sourcing, trying to find candidates, speaking to clients, trying to negotiate, trying to get the jobs over the line, trying to get their office sorted, doing all of these different types of things. Recruitment is so detailed. If anybody wants to go into recruitment, it's literally not just finding jobs and finding jobs for people. It is so detailed.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And
there's
lots of different types of recruitment as well, isn't there?
Yeah. Loads. And so I'd be doing that. And then obviously during my lunch breaks, I would still be doing stuff for presenting. I don't take the piss and do it while I'm working because at the end of the day, I want to be successful there. I want to be earning commission. I want to be doing well. So, give back. They're giving back to me. I need to make sure I respect them. And I'll never be sometimes my agent will call me like, sorry guys. I'll be on the phone to my agent, but otherwise...
Do you do that thing where you're like, it's my agent?
But hopefully most of the time I'm on it and I'm there.
Yeah.
And then in the evenings, I either chill if I've got a day not to do anything. Otherwise, I'm going to events. So I've got voiceovers. I've got some shoots I'll know about way in advance for shooting and for filming.
Yeah.
It's just hectic. And then every Saturday, I try to spend some time with my boyfriend. Fiance, getting used to it.
Getting married this year. Exciting.
Crazy. And then Sundays, I try to spend time with my mum and take her out or do something. Sometimes it has to be in the weekday in the evening, but it's just all sporadic. So no week really looks the same.
Yeah. And it does sound like you've got more time for yourself now, though. It sounds to me like the hustle has calmed down a little because you are established now. And so you're able to carve out these spots in the week for your family, for your fiance,
100%.
for you actually as well. And did you ever get burnt out, Nayha? Did you ever experience those feelings?
Yeah, definitely. Oh my God, without a doubt. those moments where you're just so tired, if things aren't going your way, sometimes you just want to come home, get into your pajamas and cry. Like, we all have those moments.
Yeah.
I still sometimes have those moments randomly, where you get really, really tired. I am getting tired. I am. But then it's all for a good cause.
Yeah.
It's all for a purpose. Yeah. And I feel like if I wasn't to do it, I'd regret it later.
Yeah. So is that what drives you? Is what drives you the fact that you don't want to have any regrets?
Yeah.
And that
I'm a big person about that and a big believer of that.
Yeah. And so you want to kind of, it sounds like you want to get the most out of your life.
Of everything.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think I always want to get the most out of every little thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can let things go. Sometimes I can not always have to do that.
Yeah.
But I want to make the most out of everything. But I feel like even when you're established, you still need to have that attitude that you did when you were hustling on Star Now. And I feel like even loads of established presenters I've been speaking to recently are feeling exactly the same thing, with a lot of TV shows not happening as much now, being commissioned. It's quite tough.
It's tough out there. Yeah.
So you need to be your biggest champion, and you need to still be that little hustler sitting at the Honda reception desk, fighting for your career and trying to get as many contacts as you can. You can't just rely on an agent because you're established.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Like, even with an agent, you still need to find your own work, really keep making your own contacts.
Yeah, you've got to put the work in.
And have you diversified because of the changing landscape of media, would you say, a little bit as well?
Yeah, massively, definitely. Now I've got more sort of specialisms as well within fashion, music, food as well, which is great. And I'm just trying to, create some different content that can focus on those different things. But also, it's not just radio presenting, it's online, it's TV, it's hosting at different events related to your specialisms. There's loads of different things that you have to think about now.
But you've cast your net, you've got your passions. It sounds like you've got 3 core passions, and you've cast your net across those, and you're working all of those, which is fantastic. In terms of like what you've learned about yourself in this journey, Nayha, is there something that you could celebrate about yourself after hearing your story back? Have you ever told your story like that?
I think I've told my story a little bit once before, but not so much about my professional career.
Yeah.
This is the first time I think I've properly spoken about my professional career, the Blue Peter. By the way, I got disciplinary for that. I didn't
oh my
to mention that. Yeah. So just looking back at all these little things, rushing after work, changing the outfits, I haven't discussed it. And it's nice to... Yeah, I feel like I deserve where I am. I feel like I've worked really hard for it.
Yeah, you're definitely a hard worker. And I think, we both agree and have discussed that it's important to be transparent about working and doing your creative work, because it might not sustain the salary that you get paid, and the paychecks you get might not sustain the life that you think you're going to have. And so we know that people start at different points in media, and everyone's different. Yeah. But in order for it to remain accessible to everyone, it's important for people to know that you can access it from different backgrounds. It just might not look how the PR stories go.
Yes.
And I think this is a really classic example, and a great example that you'll be able to talk about it so honestly and openly, Nayha, because I think no one should feel ashamed, including me. I used to feel a bit like embarrassed to say about my other jobs and doing things at the same time. But I think it's important that you can be so honest about it.
100%, because it's real life.
It's real life.
It's real life. There are so many presenters out there that do 1 or 2 things in a weekday on screen or whatever they're doing, and I wonder how do they survive?
Yeah.
How do they make money? How do they live? How do they buy those outfits? Like, can you afford it? Because I know, like, a one job might not pay your whole mortgage.
Yeah.
So what do they do? But they don't talk about it. And I get it. Like, on your socials, you wouldn't talk about it because it's not related to what your Instagram is or what your TikTok's about, etc. But it's real life. It is what it is. You need to earn money, and you shouldn't be ashamed of having a professional career alongside or previously to your creative world.
Well, actually, it's admirable to be able to juggle all of that. And I think it says a lot about you as a person and your work ethic and your acumen, which is amazing, Nayha. So I want to ask you, out of everything that you've done, would you do anything differently?
Oh, that's a very good question,
Yeah.
Would I do anything differently? The thing is, I would love to have tried to go freelance and quit and see where I would have got to.
Okay.
But I think with the amount of effort I put in, the amount of stuff I've done, if you look back, beauty pageants, Kiss Chosen One, covering for Capital, like all the stuff that I've done, I'm just thinking, what more could I have done, you know?
Yeah.
So I do think sometimes what life would be like if I had quit and been for a freelancer and just been broke.
Yeah, true. It might not
just-
have always have been, it might not have gone as you'd hoped as well.
Yeah,
you know?
that would have been a good chance to risk or anything. If I had to go back, I'd go back to that Blue Peter audition and say a question correctly. That's what I would have done.
That's a great do-over. That's a really, really good do-over. Well, you know, you've proven that you are an ultimate hustler, an ultimate hard worker, and a really honest one, an open one at that. And I appreciate your honesty. So thank you so much for today, Nayha. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.